Howdy, howdy, and welcome to My Bloody Judy with your final forgets, myself, Zachary Patton Garcia.
And Ian Carlos Crawford.
Guess what we're doing today, Ian?
What are we doing today, Zachary?
We're covering one of my favorite movies.
I had no
You
idea.
Guess what movie it is?
Is it Bring It On?
Yeah, it's another one. No, we are covering Hereditary. Usually when Ian and I record these episodes, we watch the movie earlier in the day, and then we record at night. And so that is what we are doing today. It's a nice watch. It was different watching it during the day. Ian had some little neighborhood heathens outside of his window, and he was like, old man Nevercracker, like, you kids, shut up!
Okay, wait. In my defense, it was just like, I am feeling stressed. Why are these kids having fun? What's to have fun about?
Little girl's getting her head cut off, and the kids are outside like, ah!
Exactly. I will also say tonight when I came down to set up, so I have to turn all my lights off because to get these lightings, I'm in the basement, and I have all the overhead lights. I turned them off before I turned on my lighting. Big mistake. Huge. I kept thinking like, ooh, there's going to be like a naked old person in these shadows. And literally on my way to turn the lights on, I was like, nope. And I went back upstairs, turned the lights on, turned these lights on, and then went back.
I would be more freaked out about Tony Collette up in the corner of my ceiling, than some old man dick sitting in the corner.
Old man dick.
What do you think of this movie overall, Ian? What are your initial thoughts when you first saw it? What'd you think?
When I saw it in the theater,
yeah,
I mean, I loved it. So this is only the second time I've ever watched this movie, which I did not like. I didn't realize. I often walk in late to movies, which I know is not shocking to you, Zachary.
How late were we today filming this?
I was like 40 minutes away.
It's okay.
We're both gay and Hispanic.
God did not intend to.
We're living our truth. I will say, Zachary, it's usually you tricking me. Usually I say I'm running late, and then Zach's like, it's okay, so am I.
I'll follow up with something.
Yeah.
I'm shaving. I gotta get ready.
So I think you text me as I had just gotten out of the shower and was like drying my hair. And I was like, ooh, running like 15 more late. I'm so sorry. And you're like, I'm running late too. I didn't shave. I was like, okay, good. What were your initial thoughts when you saw Hereditary in the movie theater?
Oh, I don't think you finished, though, going to the theater.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was late. I walked in on, not that late to the theater. We walked in on Tony Collette reading the eulogy. That was where I thought the movie began in my head, because I was like, I don't remember any of this, and it's not that I don't like this movie. It's just this is a movie I don't feel I need to revisit because it's very stressful. But yeah, I remember I saw it with my friend, and we were both like, oh, shit, so many times. And I'd like grab his arm, like, oh, fuck. And I remember us leaving the theater. It was a coworker, and we would always go on like movie dates. Like, just like, let's go to the movies. But it's always like a last minute thing. We're both at work, like, I want to see this movie. And yeah, I remember us like sitting in the parking lot talking about it for a while because we both felt like the same way about it.
It's a movie. It's a movie. This is, I think, the first time I saw it in the theater, and I'd already been super excited to see it anyway, just based off of the trailer. But the trailer, they did a really good job not giving any spoilers away in the trailer, because I saw that movie, and I've never had this sort of feeling leaving a movie that I've seen in the theater, like, ever. I've never had this experience. It was that kind of feeling where you're like literally sitting forward in your chair. Your hands are like on your head. I remember my hands being on my head a couple different times during this movie, and it's an intense ride. If y'all have not seen Hereditary, I highly suggest you watch it before listening to this, because there's going to be spoilers all throughout this thing. But if you can't bring yourself to watch it, because I know horror's not for everybody, we're not going to do it justice. We're not going to be able to do it justice. It will fuck with your mind tenfold.
One of our listeners, Tio, actually told me he doesn't watch horror, but he will always read and listen. So he's been listening to us talk about horror.
Ooh. What's his name?
Tio.
Hello, Tio. How are you? I hope you've survived. By now you should have survived all 4 Scream movies, and I am so sorry.
Don't knock Scream, Zachary.
So this movie is directed, it was written and directed by Ari Aster, who this is his directorial debut. This is his first feature length film. Before this, he'd gotten notoriety for 2 short films, one called Munchausen and one called There's Something About the Johnsons or something like that. And if you've seen Midsummer, he did that one right after this one, so that's him.
Ask me what I think about Midsummer.
What do you think about Midsummer, Ian? Midsummer is a very polarizing film. I appreciated what he did with it. Don't need to watch it a couple different times. That movie is already 2.5 hours, and he's got a director's cut, so it's even longer.
I'm good. I'm all set. Don't need to watch a director's cut.
If you ever watch Midsummer and then watch this one right after, this is already a 2-hour movie with a lot of really slow moving shots. This movie feels like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It moves really fast. But yeah, going into the movie, let's go ahead and start. We open up with one of the best openings I think I've ever seen in a horror movie. Immediately we get the obituary for the grandma. Her name is Ellen. We're going to call her the grandma on this because I was having a hard time on my notes trying to keep track. So grandma's obituary, and we first immediately understand that she has died. And then we get this really cool shot.
So then right after the obituary, we kind of see her miniature art that she does. Mm-hmm. They're like dioramas. Toni Collette, but they're definitely art, yes. Right? Like we would definitely consider it art. They're like very intricate. They're very detailed. And we're panning around them, and then we pan to like the dollhouse of their house. And then it does like a really cool, weird, trippy thing where like we're zooming in on this one bedroom of the house, and then Peter's it comes to life, and it's the son, Peter, and he's like waking up for the funeral. The dad's waking him up to get to the funeral.
Yeah, and it's just a really, really clever way to kind of go into your story. I think Ian and I see it a little bit differently, where I see it as we're going into this diorama of the first scene in the story, and to me that says, well, this is a story, it's not real, and Ian just
I think it's just a cool face value, right? Yeah, I think it's a cool like, opening. Yeah.
Not everything needs to be looked at in detail, but and then we have this family. So we have Annie, played by Toni Collette. We have Annie's husband Steve, and I forgot the actor's name.
Gabriel Byrne.
There you go. Perfect. Ian.
I was just about to say how I don't remember any characters' names, but I remember.
You never remember any fucking names. We do this show all the time, and I always ask Ian. I say, what was this guy's name? What was this? And it takes me an extra second to pull up the Wikipedia because Ian didn't fucking remember either.
How could I possibly remember? But I remember an actor's name. That's what I usually remember.
There you go. And then we have their children. Peter, played by Alex Wolff, if you've ever seen the Naked Brothers Band.
I am too old to have ever seen that.
Crazy cars.
Zach did say while we were watching the movie, he's like, I can start singing their songs right now.
I could do it all. And then the younger daughter, Charlie, played by Millie Shapiro. She actually played Matilda in the Broadway
I did not know that.
Play for Matilda. She did, yes. So that's pretty fun fact. Now she's on TikTok as an e-girl. She's got colorful hair and does all these TikToks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you ought to go check her out right after this.
I love that for her.
Mm-hmm. I like it. In the trailer, I thought she was so much younger than she is, but
even in the movie, I remember seeing the movie thinking she was supposed to be like 9.
She looks really young, but she's like 14 in this movie, so she's in high school with Peter.
Right.
So we have this family. They go to the funeral of Grandma's funeral, and Annie gives the eulogy, and just immediately we can kind of see that there's this disconnect between Annie and her mother. It doesn't really seem like anybody's that sad that Grandma died, There's a bunch of people at Grandma's funeral that they don't even really know. This family doesn't even really know them, and, Annie remarks that Grandma would be a little bit suspicious that so many people showed up to her funeral.
Which is important to remember for later.
It is, and it also lends to the fact that Annie didn't really know her mother. So her mother lived with her, and she still didn't know her.
Yeah.
But when we get a little bit of setup here, so in the casket, as everybody's walking by viewing the body, Grandma has this necklace on, and she has a symbol, and so the symbol's important because there's so many things you really need to pay attention to in this movie. Like, you could watch this movie over and over and find new things. There's so much that we're not even going to get into it all, But this symbol is very important because it pops up everywhere in this movie. Yeah. So Grandma has a symbol on her necklace. We've got everybody just kind of mourning in their own ways. Nobody's really crying. Nobody's, sad. And then we close out the funeral with a remark that Charlie is allergic to nuts. And so we're supposed to remember that. It's very important to remember.
And as someone who doesn't remember anything ever, I can say like they do a good job of like, it's like the like clip at the end of the scene. So it's like, oh, you do hold on to that. Like, yeah, you remember that.
Yeah.
Especially because it's like, it's important only like 40 minutes later.
So after the funeral, we kind of get a setup on family dynamics, and I don't know, it kind of sets up almost like a ghost story as well. So we've got Annie, who makes all of these miniatures. She's a miniature artist and does like art shows and all that. But she's also not very maternal. No. Toni Collette does such a great job with this character. And Annie's not maternal. She doesn't really connect with her kids. Like nobody in this family seems like they're very connected to one another. They're kind of all living in their own little pockets, Then we got Steve, who's, the dad who helps where he can. There's not much to the dad's character, but we do get the point that he's the helper. He's the guy who's, he's the good guy. Classic dad. Exactly. We've got Peter, the classic teenage stoner, and then Charlie is this weird kid at school who makes really weird toys.
That's what she does. She was like, she makes weird noises. That's what
Weird noises and weird toys. She's making weird noises while she's making these weird toys and doesn't talk to anybody, is like always looking down at her hands.
I really liked that we learned that like the family's not really, like only the little girl is sad about the grandma, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, when they walk in, Annie says like, should I be sadder?
Oh yeah.
Which is like, I liked that because also it shows like she's a little detached and not maternal, but also like we assume the grandma's kind of a dick, because then the dad walks into Peter's room and he's like, you okay? Like with everything? And he's like, yeah. Yeah.
And it's not, and it's Annie's mother. So Annie would realistically be doing this, right? This would be Annie's part to do. But again, the title Hereditary plays into, there's so many ways it could play into this movie. So Hereditary meaning maybe a lack of maternal instincts, or between Annie's mother and then Annie and her children. And then we've got this kind of ghost story set up, where this is where I thought it was going to lead. I thought it was some sort of like exorcism movie, possession movie.
Well, it's not.
I mean, what movie is it? Yeah. Just still so many questions, everybody. Still so many questions. But Annie goes through her mother's old things and finds a really ominous note. And the note is from Grandma to Annie saying, I'm sorry for everything that's going to happen, and the rewards will, or the sacrifices will pale in comparison to the rewards. So that's already like, a little bit questionable. Annie puts it away immediately, and she's leaving the room, and as she's leaving the room, she like flips off the light. Oh, really, really creepy imagery there, right?
Yeah, that's what scared me when I was coming down in the basement.
Was it that part? Is that what you were thinking of?
It was like,
so she flips off the light, and Grandma's like standing off in the shadows, in the corner. And I remember seeing it in the theater, and you could barely see her when I was watching it in the theater. And that's what makes it so freaky, is because it's like your eyes adjusting to the light, right? Yeah.
I'm getting spooked now, looking in the dark corner over there.
You're going to have to turn all these lights off again and go back upstairs.
No, I'm going to I'll leave everything on and turn the lights on. Make you come over and hold my hand, Zachary.
Yeah, and so this is like a quick second of a shot.
Right.
And then Annie flips on the light, and Grandma's gone. And then Annie goes to tuck Charlie in, and Charlie is also super creepy.
Right. You were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby. She wouldn't let me feed you because she needed to feed you. She was going crazy.
She wanted me to be a boy.
I was a tomboy when I was growing up. I hated dresses and dolls and pink.
Who's gonna take care of me?
Excuse me, you don't think I'm gonna take care of you?
But when you die.
She says, who will take care of me when you die?
Like, what the fuck? So, already there, we do see that Charlie had much more of a connection with the grandmother, which makes sense going into our next part, right?
And I mean, I do think it's important to note that like all of this is very like, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's all very flat, right? It all is very like we see her walking into this bedroom, we see her sitting down with her daughter, you know, but even though it's so flat, the like cinematography and the music builds such tension. Like you, at this point, you don't even really, like you said, is it a ghost story? Is it an exorcism? Like you don't know really what the movie's about, but you're stressed.
The score to this movie is insanely good. The guy who did the score for this is amazing, and he did a really, really great job, because even like Ian said, when there's nothing happening, so much is happening because we have this score like it feels like a knife in your back while you're sitting in your seat watching it, you know. Steve gets a call from somebody at the cemetery that the grandma's grave has been desecrated, and so he doesn't even tell Annie about this, hangs up the call really fast, and Annie then in turn comes in and tells her own lie. You know, she also lies to him. He lies by omission, but she tells a straight up lie and says, I'm going to the movies. Meanwhile, she doesn't go to the movies. She goes to a support group, right?
Clearly, this is a story where we're telling the story of grief, but like in two different ways. We're telling, like, she goes to this group almost because she's not sad about her mom, right? Like, her grief here is she doesn't feel she's grieving enough. But we know Annie as a character, and we know she's a little detached.
Yeah.
Like, already, it feels like that's her character. Like, but she's going to this support group because it's for grief. It's for people who've lost someone. But we know that, like, she's kind of feeling like I'm not grieving the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that kind of, like, I've dealt with a lot of grief in my life. I'm someone who really likes the nuance of different people. Like, everyone grieves differently. And I like the idea of her being like, ugh, like, should I talk to someone? Yeah. Because I know that I'm not having what's considered the right reaction. And then we have more grief where it's like her daughter, where she is having, like, quote unquote, the right reaction. She's like upset and like, you know, so traumatized by that. And I do really like I can remember people telling me I should go to some support groups, and I'm being like, I don't want to sit in a group. Like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone just deals with that shit in their own way, right?
I think it would have been really easy for them to make her this grieving mother, this grieving woman who's grieving about her own mother, and goes to the support group and has this big moment and stuff like that. And she does have a big moment in the support group. She has this very big monologue that explains everything we need to know about her family's history with mental health. But it's done in like the opposite way of grieving. She's not really grieving. She's like, she doesn't get it. You know, she's confused, and she's maybe even feeling a little bit more sorry for herself than anybody else.
Yes, I think so.
So...
but Toni Collette kills it.
In every monologue she does, right?
Like, and they do a good job with the group of, we keep cutting to them, but they're not saying anything, so she keeps talking. And I feel like any of us can relate to that. If you're like telling something that seems like you're nervous about talking about it, and the person you're talking to isn't reacting, then I know I have word vomit all the time. And I felt like that was also really relatable, that she just, like, when she looks at them and they're just staring back at her.
They're not saying anything. They're not reacting. Like, and that's what a support group is supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to let them have their time, but she doesn't. So she feels like she needs to keep talking, and then she, like, spills everything, you know.
She just has, like,
father,
the exposition that happened prior to the thing, but, like, in such a good way.
Her dad starved himself, locked himself in a room and starved himself. Her brother hung himself because he said that grandma was trying to put people inside of him. And she says all of this so plainly. Like, she has these moments where it is like kind of like a roller coaster, where she'll go up with like bated breath and kind of like, but then she'll like kind of deflate. And gosh, Toni Collette is one of the most underrated actresses of our generation. You know, I still cannot believe she didn't get more recognition for this role, because I feel like it's a once in a career type of role.
I would agree with that, yeah.
But horror, right? Horror is not taken seriously. Yeah, so really cool, like, stoner teenager, Alex Wolff, aka Peter, he's got a party to go to, you know? He's got a girl in his class that he really likes. And so he gets invited to this party, and he's like, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to this party. And he says, well, take your sister. You know, Charlie doesn't even want to go to this fucking party. They tell Charlie about it, and she's like, I don't want to go. This is right after, by the way, Charlie's like seeing grandma out in the field, like surrounded by a ring of fire, and then like,
And she's cut a bird's head off.
it's like fucking weird shit.
I will say,
Charlie
I didn't
is
realize it
seeing
was the
some-
grandma until you said that. I just thought it was
Yes.
like a random old person as part of that was part of their club.
I don't even know where when they're on their way to the party, and even during Charlie's big scene, where do you think they are? Because it looks like Colorado, doesn't it?
I mean, sure, yeah, it's like very weird and like there's like nothing. There's not lights, there's not houses.
Yeah. So Peter takes Charlie to this party and almost immediately leaves her to go talk to this girl and go smoke a bowl with this girl. And so Charlie just kind of moseys around the party and gets a piece of cake.
He goads her, he's like, get some cake, blah blah blah. Get like, they're about to it's for everyone, it's a party.
Yeah.
Goes and smokes a bowl. She immediately realizes that her throat is closing up. She goes, get a glass of water. That doesn't help because there is nuts in the cake. Which we did
Yes.
see them when they're like, we get the like shot of the hands. We do see like, and it is my worst nightmare that I am high and an emergency happens. Like just the idea of that,
Ian is Peter in this situation. I told Ian that if I was with Ian and he was high and I needed anything, my arm got cut off or anything, I would not fucking come to you.
I mean, the thing is, I think I would be like, I am too high. Why don't you call an ambulance and like maybe hand you my
just
phone?
drive myself, just kind of like it.
You could even use one of my arms to help.
You would literally be freaking out. I would probably not even tell you, Ian. I would just kind of quietly.
You know what?
exit and
That's
text
exactly
from the
what you would do,
hospital.
you asshole.
So yeah, Charlie's allergic to nuts, as we heard earlier, and her throat is closing up, and so Peter is like, fuck, and jumps in the car, puts her in the car, and is like rushing to the hospital. This scene is the most stressful fucking, and this is like 30-40 minutes into the movie. We are not very far into the movie at all, and this little girl is in the trailer. All throughout the trailer, they make it look like she's the main character, and she's about to die, y'all. Just spoiler alert, she's about to die. It is so fucking stressful, and this was the exact moment in the theater where I was up, grabbing my hair, and like literally mouthing to myself and telling my husband next to me, fuck, like, what the fuck are we watching? What are we watching? Because everything after this point gets turned on its head. And so we've got 3 shots. Charlie in the back seat, like freaking out. She can't breathe. She opens the window and sticks her head out because she's trying to catch some breath. Peter's freaking out in the driver's seat, speeding as fast as he can, and then we get the road right in front of them.
And he's like drenched in sweat.
Oh, yeah, and he's always drenched in sweat, I feel like.
For the rest of the movie, yeah.
He looks, I can't remember him wearing any outfit other than the green jacket. Like, he wears the same outfit in the entire movie to me. But he's like, yeah, we see the road in front of them, and we know something is going to happen. Something is going to happen with the road. And it does. There's an animal in the road. Peter swerves out of the way. And remember, Charlie's hanging her head out the window and fucking decapitated by this telephone pole. And it is fucking bananas. This shit is insane. And it happens all so quick and so abrupt. And Peter slams on his brakes and everything's quiet. When he slams on his brakes, everything is quiet. And this moment is just so real.
And he's just like, Charlie, are you okay? Like, ugh.
Because he knows. He knows. And he may not even know that, like, her head is like off rolling down the interstate. But
He knows she's dead. Like,
he knows because she's not responding to him. He tries to look in the rearview mirror, and he can't even make himself do it. He will not look. He's like gripping the steering wheel, like Ian said. He's sweating and he's kind of breathing.
And my notes for this scene are in all caps saying, I really don't enjoy watching this movie, even though I love it.
It's moments like this that give you all them feelings because he is just like, he's stopping, like trying to stop this panic attack. This panic attack is coming out. It's also like, I don't know, there's some whole mix of confusion. Also on the telephone pole, by the way, is that symbol that we saw earlier on Grandma's necklace. Yeah, some crazy shit. Nothing in this movie, by the way, is coincidental. Everything is purposeful in this movie, so it's very important to remember that. And fuck, like, what do you do when something like that happens? What do you do when this happens? And there's no answer, like the right answer in your head, thinking logically, is, call somebody. You call the police, you call your parents, whatever. He's in total shock and just drives home very, very slowly. Doesn't tell anybody. He goes to bed, and we just watch him in bed with his eyes open as the sun comes up. And then we hear Toni Collette saying, I'm going to go do this and I'll be back. And then we hear her find the body, and she just, the sounds that come from her are not human. Like, it's this guttural sound of shock and pain and disbelief. And it's like, I don't know, we get this montage of grief that is just so unsettling.
My notes after this say, Ian and Zach feel unanimous about, quote unquote, that poor dad.
The poor dad. Oh, gosh. The poor dad. Oh, he didn't even find the damn body, but I feel like he has it the worst in this movie. Poor Steve. But yeah, so we've got like the worst 3-4 minutes in any movie that I've ever seen. And this, I think Aiden and I both agree that even without all the horror elements, if you took all of the horror out, this is a drama, and it could totally stand on its own as a family drama.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And like, it would still be, I mean, I don't know that like either of us would love it as much, but it would still definitely be a good like movie about like a family that's like a little disjointed, and then a terrible thing also happens to them.
Yeah. And everybody sort of deals with this, because this event is much different than the grandma's death. So this tears the entire family apart. Where they were kind of disconnected before, they're definitely disconnected now. Annie just kind of just wholly goes into herself. She completely disconnects from all of her family members, and she's really, really depressed and like crying, and then just not saying anything to anybody. And she's sleeping in the treehouse where Charlie used to go. And Peter is he's having like all of these really intense panic attacks.
We get that scene of him under the bleachers that made me cry. That scene made me cry because it felt so real. And it's like, they're just, his friends are still being his friends, right? They're still like hanging out with him. And I've definitely been that person. And for me, I just felt like, fuck, like I feel so bad for him because he's like sitting there, they're just smoking weed on the bleachers. I think the guys are talking about like whatever girl they like.
Yeah.
And he just like starts like, he's like, I can't breathe. Can you just hold my hand? And he's just like crying, and oh God.
And we see like the beginning of this panic attack, like in this scene. And it's just so real, because when you see it and you're watching a horror movie, you're thinking something like supernatural's happening or something like that. No, it's just a very real panic attack. I feel like we've all, like, have you had a panic attacks in front of like a group of people? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of my worst fears. And usually if I've ever started to have a panic attack, I'll like remove myself from the situation like immediately.
I do it like when he says like hold my hand. That's kind of what I do. I like make someone like hold my hand.
It's so sad. It's so sad. I feel so bad for him too, because he kind of gets some blame here, and it kind of, I guess that kind of goes back to Annie, what Annie said at the support group, where she was like, I am blamed. And that kind of like applies here, because Peter is kind of blamed. He has some of the blame, even though like we said, this is none of this is coincidental. But this, even if it was coincidental, even if this was an accident that happened,
he was still driving.
He did it.
Right. He still drove the car. I mean, and especially with grief, there's always levels of blame, right? And like the mom definitely made Charlie go to the party, and then he was driving the car that Charlie had the nuts, and like there's a lot of like levels of blaming yourself here, like that tracks with everyone. Although I don't feel like Toni Collette does a lot of self-blame in this time for the grief. She does it with her mom, but not with her daughter.
Oh, not at all. Like for this one, it's pretty clear that she blames Peter. They don't even talk. They don't even talk in these scenes. Peter's having all these panic attacks, and then poor fucking Steve is just the last bit of thread holding this family together, and he's just trying to help where he can. He doesn't even have time to grieve on his own.
Right. No.
We get a few shots of him like taking some pills, like something, trying to medicate himself a little bit, but he doesn't even have time to grieve, because his family is fucking like, it is blowing up before his very eyes.
Yeah. And then, so she goes to the support group. She does meet Ann Dowd, Joni.
Oh, I love Ann Dowd. Anybody who's seen The Handmaid's Tale? Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale?
No.
Have you? Oh, yeah. It's Wait. So, it's very depressing though.
I will tell you, So it's been on for a while now, because I was still living in Brooklyn, and I remember my roommate and I think my ex were both watching it together.
Okay.
I literally saw one scene of one episode, and it made me cry too much, and I was like, I don't want to watch this.
It's a very depressing show. It is very depressing, but it's so well done, and everybody in it's really, really good. And Ann Dowd is in it, and she's just as good in this one, but much better in him. She plays evil really, really well, Ian. And we meet Joan here, played by Ann Dowd again. Yeah. And Joan and Annie kind of form this friendship where Annie's not connecting to anybody else. Annie connects to Joan, and it's kind of because Joan kind of imposes herself on her. Joan's whole story is that she lost her grandson, right? Did she lose her son or just the grandson?
Her son and grandson both drowned, is what she says.
Okay. Yeah. And
Look, I remembered a thing again.
Yeah, there you go. Her grandson's name is...
The fuck, I don't know that.
We were almost there, Ian. We were almost there.
Do we even get his name? I don't know if we get his name.
It's Louis, yeah, because I connected it to kind of maybe be Lucifer. I don't know. This is a cult movie, by the way, everybody. So, yeah. So Joan is Joan is this mysterious woman who's just popped up into Annie's life and kind of pushes her way into it. And Annie becomes friends with her, but yeah, we start getting all this supernatural stuff happening. Peter is seeing this could either be trauma or could be actual supernatural presence, and Peter and Annie are hearing and seeing Charlie. It's just what sound are they hearing? I'll let you do it. This is Ian's big moment, dude.
Is it? Right?
Yes.
Ian's big moment. Fuck off.
That'll be the rest of the podcast.
No, stop. I'm gonna get spooked.
Dude, getting a little horny.
I said spooked.
Somebody said that in the theater when we went to see it, and I always remember that now. Every time I hear that, because somebody behind us was like, "I'm getting a little horny."
God. So also we get then we come to a scene where the husband goes in to tell Annie he's cooked dinner, and she is making a miniature set of the car accident where her daughter died. And he has the car, she has the head on the street, she's doing the blood.
But artist subjective. Right. We all deal with our things in different ways. I make videos to kind of process things. She makes miniatures. She makes miniatures of the scene that her daughter died at.
Right. I wrote the whole article that was very polarizing about my friend dying.
Yeah.
I think that the thing here is but your son will see this and maybe that will traumatize him.
Yeah, and Steve makes that point that you better not let Peter see this, and he's super angry about it, understandably, and she just doesn't get it. She's like, it's a neutral view of the accident,
which is like bananas.
And so he's like, fucking dinner's ready. Just come downstairs and dinner's fucking ready. He's a little bit more calm than that. He's just like, dinner's ready.
I was gonna say, don't oversell your acting because
I know. That's just me. That's how I would be. Be like, what the fuck are you doing, Annie?
That's how Zach talks to me.
Ian, you were fucking late today.
So aggressive.
And then we get the best scene. One of the best scenes of cinema, period. I have to say. Would you agree or disagree? Maybe.
Everything's your top 5, so sure.
I have a lot of top 5s, people. But this is so good. This scene is so good. And Toni Collette is fucking megastar here. Megastar actor. This is her fucking star power.
And it is wild to think she's doing this scene while also still doing an accent.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Oh, yeah, because it's kind of hard to, if I were to do this scene in a British accent, it would I would fall out of it over and over
sound like
again.
A cartoon, yeah.
And she's her fucking power here, man. And all of this resentment that this family has, and all of these little tensions and all this anger that's been building up, it all boils over now. It explodes here at this dinner table.
The scene of the movie, I feel like.
Yes.
What? Is there something on your mind?
Is there something on your mind?
It just seems like there might be something you want to say.
Peter.
Like what? I mean, why would I want to say something so I could watch you sneer at me?
Sneer at you? I don't ever sneer at you.
Oh, sweetie, you don't have to. You get your point across.
Okay, so fine, then say what you want to say then.
Peter.
I don't want to say anything. I've tried saying
Okay, so
things.
try again. Release yourself.
Oh, release you mean?
Yeah, fine. Release me. Just say it. Just fucking say it.
Don't you swear at me, you little shit! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Do you understand? All I do is worry and slave and defend you, and all I get back is that fucking face on your face! So full of disdain and resentment and always so annoyed. Well, now your sister is dead. And I know you miss her. And I know it was an accident. And I know you're in pain. And I wish I could take that away for you. I wish I could shield you from the knowledge that you did what you did. But your sister is dead. She's gone forever. And what a waste. If it could have maybe brought us together or something. If you could have just said, I'm sorry, or faced up to what happened. Maybe then we could do something with this. But you can't take responsibility for anything. So now I can't accept. And I can't forgive. Because nobody admits anything they've done.
Got it.
I really think it's like the scene of the movie. Like, I mean, clearly so much more shit happens, but
Yeah, if you're on Twitter, you've fucking seen this scene. It floats around all the time on Twitter.
I
think there was a group of people who did like a line reading for it, right?
that is what gave me the idea of doing the line ratings from Cyberfest.
Is it
98.
really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I don't remember. We talked about that so long ago for the first time. That was like earlier this year.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I will say I always think of the meme. I saw Crystal from Drag Race UK posted a meme that's Tony Collette yelling, and I think I sent it to you. It's her like it's the like a screenshot of her pointing and yelling, but it says "Don't you," and it's like that little like smiley face of like the eyes where it looks like
Is it just?
yeah, that one. It's like "Don't you at me, you little bottom," and I always I think of that every time I use that face as a self-read.
I know, that's gonna be my exit. Don't you raise your voice at me. I am your final forget. Yeah. So this dinner scene doesn't go anywhere.
I got teary-eyed
Basically,
watching it. I did when we watched it.
It's one of those. I could totally see it just really hitting your heartstrings, and he leaves the table. There's no resolution, and Peter's just kind of sitting there, and Steve comforts him.
God, and
And
the
then
no
we get-
resolution is the rest of the movie.
There's no resolution. Ari Aster made a movie that hurts people. That's why Stephen King didn't like The Shining, by the way. It's because he said it was a movie that hurts people.
Really?
And, that's this fucking movie. So, but then we get Annie and Joan performing a seance because we got to let all the spookies in, you know.
Yeah.
So Annie meets. She bumps into Joan at the craft store, and Joan's like, "Oh, Annie!" The way she like skips across the parking lot, you know?
And even
Gets
Annie's
me.
like, "Are you okay?"
"Yeah, it's just like." But no, Joan convinces her to do a seance, as you do. You know, sometimes I convince Ian to do seances with me.
I have no
Over
doubt
Zoom.
you could convince me to do one. I would be scared, but I
Really? We almost, or me and Alistair did one for our last Halloween special. We did like a pretend one, and we aired it like it was a live stream, and everybody was screaming at us in the chat to close the door because I guess you're supposed to close the spirit door or something whenever you're done with it, and they were all like, "You left the spirit door open! Close it! Close it!"
Well, that explains you now. So
I mean, there might be a little bit of somebody else inside me right now. In more than
back
one way.
before the pandemic, I remember when that would happen.
Okay. Oh, we're just forgets. We're just forgets. Yeah, so Annie and Joan can do this seance. And Joan contacts Louis, her grandson, her supposed grandson, which I think is Lucifer. I think it's the devil that she's contacting here. And Annie gets really freaked out, like bolts for the door, but right before she leaves, Joan makes sure to give her she gives her directions on how to contact Charlie.
Right.
Yeah. And so either that night or the very next night, it's very, very soon after, and he's having all these dreams. It's like a dream within a dream where she keeps seeing Peter dead, and then she dreams that she has this really intense emotional confrontation with Peter.
Why are you scared of me?
What? I never wanted to be your mother.
Why?
I was scared. I didn't feel like a mother. But she pressured me.
Then why did you have me?
It wasn't my fault. I tried to stop it.
How?
I tried to have a miscarriage.
How?
However I could. I did everything they told me not to do, but it didn't work. I'm happy it didn't work.
You tried to kill me.
I love you.
Why did you try to kill me?
I did. I was trying to save you.
Why did you try to kill me?
And that scene's really good.
And it if it was a real scene, it's a scene of the beginning of some sort of healing. They're being honest with each other. They're getting answers from each other. And he says, I never wanted to be your mother. And Peter's like, why? Why did you have me? And she's like, I tried to get rid of you. I tried to but I'm glad I had you. I love you. I love you. I'm glad I had you. And it's just like, it goes so bananas, and they start speaking over each other, and it goes so fast. And then like Annie catches on fire, and it's crazy. But then she wakes up because this is not real, and nobody admits anything they've done.
And no one's on fire yet.
Foreshadowing, eh? But Annie wakes up from this dream and decides to go contact Charlie, as you do, and she is successful. So she's like pumped with adrenaline right now, pumped with energy, and she goes and wakes up Steve and Peter. And this is, I find this part kind of sad, and it's just a brief moment where she wakes up Peter, and she's like, Peter, I'm so sorry for everything that happened, but just get up, come on. Because that's the only time she ever apologizes to Peter.
Yes,
It's the only time she gives him any sort of like acknowledgement that she did wrong, that she has been such a bitch to him. And it's only to like get her way so that he'll go with her, and he does.
But
And he
also,
gets up and
I
then-
felt
yeah.
like clearly she's spiraling. Like she's manic,
Yeah.
and she's like, they said like her waking everyone up, being like, "Oh, I have the perfect solution to everything." I feel like that's me spiraling. Like, "Oh, I got it! I found it,
every
Zach."
fucking night. This is ignore text messages all day and respond to everybody at 4 a.m. at night. That's my life. And she gets them all to do a seance with her, and they do it, and it's like freaky at first, and everybody's kind of like intrigued, but like very standoffish still. And then they appear to contact Charlie, and they hear like wind. There's like the glass moves, seance shit.
Peter's
devil shit.
crying, and I feel like a thing I really like about the way they do Peter is because
We can talk about his cry.
yeah, his crying is so good. And also he's just depressed. There's no like, I mean, he ends up being our final whatever. But like, he's not resourceful. He's not like particularly like clever, or he's just like a teen. Like you said in the beginning, it's like he smokes weed and has a crush on this girl. That's kind of like it. He's like he's a well done character in the fact that he isn't the one that's gonna like pick up a weapon and start fighting. He's just fucking terrified and depressed and scared. And I can appreciate that, especially in like a teen male. Like we don't get that often where they're like kind of helpless, but it's like really okay because he also is depressed and a kid. And I just appreciate that he's just sobbing, saying how upset he is. And like, that's
and
it.
nobody's helping him.
Yeah.
Like he's crying out and nobody's helping. And Steve is trying to help as much as he can, but really the only person that really can help is his mother. Right. He needs his mother, and she's just fucking gone, man. She's like gone. And I do like that you kind of brought up the way he cries, because when he cries, he's this laid back, chill teenager when we meet him, and when we hear him cry, he like goes into like a 4-year-old's mode,
like
and
a
the
kid,
way he cries sounds like a 4-year-old, and it's just heartbreaking to hear. and Alex Wolff just did such a great job with him. And the seance just goes like awry because you shouldn't be contacting spirits. Like, I think that's something that everybody should agree on.
And also, I don't understand how that's her. So, like, that will make everything better. Like,
I don't know. Let's contact Charlie. And then Charlie gets mad and she's like, why are you mad, Charlie?
yeah.
Charlie. And then she like channels her. I don't know. And then it just all goes bad. And basically from here, they've opened something they shouldn't have. They've like broken down some sort of barrier that I feel like was the last sort of defense. So by this point, after they do this seance, all bets are off. What's done is done.
Yeah.
The plan is set in motion. And there's no going back. There's no stopping it. There's no anything. And so basically from here on out, the movie goes kind of fast. You know, they start seeing and hearing more supernatural things, supernatural occurrences, but it gets more and more menacing. And it's very clear that Peter is the target here now. So, you know, he goes from this nothing teenage boy, nothing to him, to he's the target of the movie now. Yeah. He's the target of this supernatural entity.
Like, and even though the mom is the main character, she is kind of like just in the way of what they're getting at.
Yeah. And they don't try to make her a sympathetic character at all here. So I really enjoy that, actually. And Peter is the sympathetic character here because he's the target and he didn't deserve this. But... and we probably should have said this earlier. So when Annie first goes to the support group, she mentions that the grandma wanted Peter, but Annie completely cut off contact with the grandmother because the grandmother was like crazy, you know? The grandmother was insane. And so when Annie had her second child, Charlie, she gave that child basically to the grandma, and the grandma sunk her hooks into Charlie, and... almost like we're supposed to believe that the grandma just doesn't trust Annie to be a mother, but really, grandma's part of this cult.
Right.
And Annie finds out that the grandma is part of this cult that is trying to bring back this demon god king something Payman. And so Payman needs a male host. Right. And Charlie was not a male, obviously. So they put Payman into Charlie, but they need to kill Charlie so that they can put Payman into Peter. And so Annie starts finding all of this stuff out. She sees, scrapbook. I don't know why she didn't go with the grandma stuff in the beginning, but fuck ever. She sees in the scrapbook that Joan knew grandma. Joan was part of this cult, and Joan is doing like all these spells on Peter and like really putting this plan in motion. And Joan's outside of Peter's school screaming at him, and she's like, Sanctity!
Yeah, she's like,
Peter, get out!
And I think that scene is like pretty scary. Like,
Do you think she was there, or was that just in his head?
I thought she was. I thought she was there, but like the spell she was doing was like no one could really see her. Yeah,
because nobody was reacting.
Right, and like, you and I like stuff with witches, so like, sure, I can buy that either she wasn't there and it's like she's putting it in his head, or that she was there, but like no one else could see her but him because of whatever spell she was doing.
Yeah. Definitely.
And the thing it reminds me very much of, because, we got that earlier scene. It's not Joan that's like waving at Charlie. It's like another random older lady.
Yeah.
The thing I like about that is it's very like The Omen or Rosemary's Baby, where it's like these like older folks that are dressed in plain clothes, like, they don't look weird, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that makes it creepier. The fact that any of those like ladies that we see standing across the street from that school literally could be like random suburban grandmas or moms, and like, for me, that makes it scary because it's like they're monsters, but like monsters you wouldn't be able to like pick out. Yeah,
and they're all just really trying to bring this demon to Earth. So like, who is it? Look down the street. Who the fuck is here trying to summon demons? I don't fucking know. But yeah, so Annie finds out all of this stuff, but she finds it all out like way too late. It doesn't even matter that she's found any of this out. It's just to explain it to us, basically, because the scene really didn't even need to be here because it's fucking done now. Peter is sitting in class at one moment and his whole body gets taken over. It looks like he got taken over by Charlie because that's exactly how she looked when she was allergic to the peanuts. Like her eyes started closing up and like she couldn't breathe and like, I don't know, it was weird. Peter gets taken over by this supernatural entity, whatever, and like it makes him smash his face into the desk like over and over, and it's brutal, and he breaks his nose, and then he comes to and he's like fucking like obviously And so Steve goes and picks Peter up and brings him home, and we reach our climax. Climax of the movie.
Bananas.
Yes, it's to me, this even almost feels like an epilogue. You know, it kind of even feels like an epilogue to me because it really it's just.
No
So
way,
we're
it's
gonna
like the
show
whole
you
movie's
now.
leading up to it, I feel like.
I feel like yes, the movie's leading up to it, but it just feels like this is what happens next. We're just gonna show you. There's no real hope for anybody. You can't hope for anybody to get out and root for them and like scream at the screen, "Hey, go do this!" Because
I don't know.
there's no
I
way to
held
do
out
any of
hope
that.
that Peter would get away.
Did you? I see. I think by this point, I was pretty certain that everybody was gonna die or something in some way.
I knew the dad was going to die because I knew they saw that in the trailer when he's on fire. So I was like,
Yeah.
I kept waiting for that scene. And since we didn't get it in a dream, I was like, ooh, that dad's done. That dad's done so. But I kept thinking like maybe Peter would get in the car and drive away. But like I said earlier, he's not like a teen that would do that. Like he's a very much like, I am scared, I am crying, I don't know what to do, which like relatable.
100%.
So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that he would die, right? Because he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't like.
But also, there's like not any time for him to do anything else. So Steve brings Peter home. Peter is out. He's sedated because he had to go to the hospital and get his nose fixed. And he comes home and Annie's like freaking out in the rain and like holding the scrapbook, and she's like screaming at Peter or at Steve. Like, by the way, Annie found Grandma's body in the basement. And Grandma went missing earlier from the cemetery. She's in the fucking attic now
With her
with
head
no
cut off.
head. Her head's gone.
Which confused me the first time I saw the movie because I thought it was the
Yeah.
daughter since the head was off.
That's
But
because it's one of those moments they just show it really briefly.
but we learned that like they have to have their head chopped off, right? That's the assumption here.
I mean, I'm guessing yes, because everybody gets their head cut off basically,
Right.
and so.
Or all the
So
way-
Annie is like pleading with Steve, like, look in the attic, please. And like Steve is like, I can see it on his face that he's like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Do I just jump out of a window right now?
Right.
Because what the fuck am I supposed to do? He goes upstairs, sees the body. He's like, he totally believes it's Annie. He's like, you've never been to the movies. You weren't going to the movies. Because remember, Annie had been lying to Steve. And all she had to do was tell him the truth. I was going to support groups. But now he thinks that she went and dug up her fucking mother and she's lost it completely. And he's like, throw Charlie's sketchbook into the fire. It's going to set me on fire. Because earlier she tried to throw Charlie's sketchbook into the fire and it set her arm on fire. So she's like, it's going to set me on fire. And I love you, Steve, but I have to do this. I have to sacrifice myself. And he won't do it. So she throws it in there and it sets Steve on fire. And Steve is dead. Poor Steve didn't ever have a chance. And that is the moment that I feel like, because I feel like Payman needs to inhabit these bodies, but they have to get to a certain point of distress or like they have to break or something before he can do that. And so this is the moment that Annie breaks. She's watching Steve die in front of her and her whole face is just like,
Well, it's like she's scared, and then we get that flash of light that we got a few times beforehand,
Yes.
and then she just like switches off
she's just like,
and then goes slack. Yeah.
and that's the moment she broke. Her consciousness is no longer there and something inhabits her. And then we get later on that night, Peter finally wakes up and fuck, like it's all quiet too. So that's what makes it even creepier is that this is all happening in silence and everything's dark, but like in the back you can just see like Toni Collette like up on the
fucking
wall.
ceiling.
It's-
Or on the,
it's
first it's
so
on the wall,
fucking
then it's the
creepy.
ceiling, then it's the ceiling again. Jesus Christ.
And he doesn't see her. He's just facing forward, kind of like doesn't know where anybody is. She's like crawling across. It happens. She's just crawling across the wall, and he goes downstairs, finds Steve's body, and behind him again in the corner, like on the ceiling, is
on the ceiling
Toni
again.
Collette, and she just like fucking Batman, you know. She's like, I'm the
And then
Batman.
she like, it's like the music swells so good because it's like he doesn't see her, she's behind him, and he's just
Yeah.
like, he realizes he like sees the ring on the finger and realizes it's his dad. That's the burnt
Yeah.
corpse in front of him, and then suddenly the mom jumps out to grab at him, and he's just like doing all the things Sidney
Yeah.
Prescott taught us not to do.
Just run up the stairs. But he's in the middle of fucking nowhere. Even
Right.
if he runs outside, like where is he supposed to fucking go? So she chases him around the house and into
before
the
that-
attic. What?
He sees the dead guy, not the dead guy, the naked old man in the door frame, which is
There's
creepy
naked-
as hell.
All the cult people are naked in this movie, or almost all of them except for Ann Dowd. They weren't going to make her take her clothes off and show her tits.
I really feel like she was like, I'm not doing that. No.
No, they were probably like, what if we just, she has long hair. They're probably, we'll just put your hair like, and she's like,
Because even in that scene when they're all like bowing, she's still got
she's
her.
the only one.
Yeah.
She's the, I guess, like the high priestess that gets to
And, like,
keep her
sure.
clothes on.
Sure, that would be me. I'd be like, hey, let me take my clothes off. I don't mind if everyone else does, but like,
Get those fake tits that the drag queens use.
yeah,
Put
yeah.
a pair of those on.
I'd be like, give me a bodysuit and it can be nude colors.
But all these cult members we saw them earlier at Grandma's funeral, so it's all the same people, and they're just sprinkled around the property, naked, standing around.
Hanging out.
Annie chases Peter into the attic, and she's like, "This is like these are some things that you just gotta see, y'all. You just have to see them." So she's like suspended off the ground. She's like if you were kneeling on all fours on the ground, that's how she is on the ceiling. She's like banging her head over and over into the ceiling. And Peter's like, "Mom, please stop. But it's not his mom, so it doesn't matter. Everything goes quiet. Everything is like still. He sees where the grandma's body was. And he's just kind of like, he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. He doesn't figure anything out. He never figures a single damn thing out in this movie. He's just,
I wouldn't either.
he's like, I don't even remember my grandma's name.
Yeah.
And
Texted you.
yeah, so he turns around, and Annie is now in the attic, but she's like floating, and she's got this like, I
think
know,
it's like a pencil.
It's not a pencil. No, it's because I'm assuming she uses it to cut her miniatures, to cut the balsa wood.
Oh, so Mace's
It's
scalpel.
like, yeah,
Or
it's
the
kind of,
X-Acto
it's
knife.
just something, some sort of
Because we
little
hear the
thing.
sawing noise after
She's
like, once
sawing
we cut
her
away
head
from
off, and we watch her just do it, and she's, and then fucking head goes off, because everybody's just gets their heads cut off in this. Peter's like, "Fuck, what?" And he looks over, and this is the part that like breaks him, I guess, is he sees more naked people. It's not like he just saw.
Like a bunch of the old people are like coming forward out of the shadows.
Yeah, he sees more naked people, and he jumps out of the window, and he dies. And so this is, Payman is free to take over Peter's body. Charlie,
little bit-
a.k.a. Payman.
Right. Yes, because also we see that weird light again, and it goes to him, and then that's when he gets up.
Yeah, and he also...
And then we see fucking Toni Collette's headless body floating up to the clubhouse where Charlie, which was the first time I saw this movie, not until this time did I realize she was headless. I thought her head was just down and her hair was like this.
Yeah.
But nope, her head is
Yeah.
clean right off.
So it's clear it's not Peter anymore. It's definitely Charlie. We get that indication because it's like... but I think the point is that Charlie has always been Payman. Charlie was never an actual person, because her body was already taken over from birth. And so Peter goes up into the treehouse where all of the cult members are naked and like bowing down to him, and Ann Dowd is bowing down and kind of gives him his little introduction. "You are Payman. We found you a male host. We did your bidding, and you will give us riches." And we also see Grandma's headless body and Toni Collette's headless body all bowing down to him.
And we see Charlie's head on this like effigy's body.
It's like an altar, like this
Yeah.
big thing that I don't know how long it's been in the treehouse. I thought Toni Collette was sleeping in the treehouse for a good bit. So I don't know, but we end the same way basically that we started the movie, where our shot like cuts to like a wider shot, and the room is kind of like surrounded by black, almost as if we're watching a stage. We're watching the stage, and the play closes as everybody in the treehouse is in unison saying, "Hail Payman."
They're having a great time.
There might be punch after this. We end the movie. The end, and nobody is happy except for the cult members. The cult members, Ann Dowd, she had the happy ending. She's our
She got it.
She's
got
our
everything
little
done.
Lucy rom-com girl in this. This movie, man,
I feel spooked now in this dark, spooky basement, Zach.
Are you?
You need to come here and turn on the lights.
Are you telling ghost stories? So are they coming for you? Hey, what if it's your parents? What if your parents are cult worshippers? You never
make a lot
know.
more sense.
You never know. A group of Trump supporters could be like naked outside your house right now.
Yeah, and then I would jump out the window. I'd be like, I think Hereditary is happening. I have to jump out the window.
He
Zach.
did exactly like that. Just right out. This is one of those movies though that there's so much to deep dive that we wouldn't even be able to do it in this episode. So there's plenty of videos all over the internet, all over YouTube, that I highly recommend going and watching. Just search Hereditary deep dive, and there's a shit ton of them because there's just so many different layers and hidden elements of this movie that it's just fun to go through it and kind of dissect it. A bunch of different fan theories.
A+ still scares me talking about it.
I
Everyone's acting is top tier. This movie wouldn't be as good. The writing is still very good, but it wouldn't have been as good if it were lesser actors, I think.
Yeah, and he, you know what, for his first movie, he got a pretty good one. Like it seemed like he had a pretty good production budget with this. 'Cause
Everything
he
was
got-
everything was an A+ all around. I think.
Yeah, like he got pretty big stars. It was an A24 movie, so if that tells you anything, it's it's A24. It's very artsy.
Oh, is it Zachary?
Very artsy, very pretentious. It's just so good.
I
A
push my
plus
glasses up
plus
too much?
plus. Yeah. What's your favorite part of it?
The dinner scene.
Is it?
Or the end. The whole end, the last 15
Yeah.
minutes are so fucking bananas. What's your favorite part, Zachary?
I think it had to be the dinner scene, just from I don't know. I just love film, and from somebody who loves.
I just love movies.
From somebody who loves film as much as I.
Oh, fuck off.
I appreciate every element of that dinner scene, and it just elevates it above just your typical. Because this could have very easily have been a ripoff of Rosemary's Baby or something like that,
Right.
And it just all of these little elements of family drama really elevate it and differentiate it from that. I also think this is a movie that I don't know, it probably kind of sucks that he put this out at the beginning of his career, because I don't, how is he ever going to top something like this,
I mean,
Like he followed up with Midsummer and didn't. Every time I say that movie name, Ian got. He just starts twitching.
Twitter loved it too much, and I was like, no, this is not. Anyway,
Yeah,
continue.
That's okay. I don't know. I really appreciate Ari Aster. We're going to close out. Where can everybody find you, Ian Carlos Crawford?
You can find me on all social media platforms at Ian X Carlos. You can find my podcast, SlayerFest98, where we talk about Buffy and Marvel stuff, but mostly Buffy, at SlayerFestX98 on all social media platforms, and SlayerFest98 on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and every other place you get podcasts.
Yeah.
Zachary, where can everyone find you?
Everybody can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Adventures of Zach and B, and Twitter, Adventures Z and B, and sometimes on Ian's podcast, SlayerFest X98.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Go vote.